yes, isn't it?
that button there.
The right hand button.
So it's red, and then you speak, and you'll see yourself come up on the screen because we stream it live to YouTube. When you finish asking the question, if you
Okay. Okay.
Good evening, members. If you don't mind, remain standing while my chaplain for the evening addresses you. This is Kelly, the new Bishop of Basingstoke.
For all that you do to serve this glorious community. You have a lot of business to get through tonight. You have mince pies waiting, and therefore I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking to you now, but I do hope that we get to meet again in future. But I would like to, if you don't mind, pray a prayer of blessing over you. Before I do that, before you bow your heads, I just want to say that Chris Martin, who is the front man of Coldplay, wrote lyrics that said, "I wrote a song for you," in the song Yellow. Well, I've written a prayer for you. I'm going to leave the words of it with the Mayor, lest you want to use it at a future point. But it is a prayer just for this council. So let's pray. Almighty God, in this place of local government, we give thanks for all those who seek to serve here with courage, with integrity, and with kindness. And we hold before you tonight's agenda and ask that you would grant wisdom as discussions flow, insight to grapple with difficult issues, and to look beyond easy answers, humility and grace in each conversation, generosity and compassion in disagreement, justice in decision-making, and the ability to exercise power in a way that is life-giving for all members of our community. Encourage and sustain all members of this council as they bear the burden of responsibility, that they may accept your guidance and, acting with integrity, may know your rest. And may the Lord bless you and keep you, now and always. Amen. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks for coming. Thank you very much.
And have a good evening all, and a very good Christmas too.
Cheers. Members, please be seated. Are we nearly ready, members? Right, let's move on with the meeting then. Item 1 on the agenda, apologies for absence. Councillor Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got apologies from Councillors Basham, Tomlin and Connor. Councillors Ashfield and Tetcher will be late and are trying to get to the meeting.
Councillor Gavin James?
Apologies for Councillor Bowes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies for Councillor Putty and Councillor Golding.
Thank you.
Apologies from Councillor Freeman, Councillor Harper and Councillor Lee. Thank you.
Thought I saw him earlier. I thought I saw him earlier. Item 2 on the agenda, members, declarations of interest. We've got declarations from Councillor Tuck and Councillor Grassi. Okay, that's on an item further on the agenda.
Sorry, yes, Mr. Mayor. Item 11 on the agenda, the Old Basing and Litch Pit Governance Review.
Is it the same for Councillor Grassi? Noted. Thank you very much. We'd go on to item 3 on the agenda, minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of October. Are you content that I sign those as a true record? And have I got a seconder? Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Thank you very much. Item 4 on the agenda is the Office of Mayor and Deputy Mayor for the year 2026-2027. Councillor Jackie Tastain is invited to stand for Mayor. Councillor Sajis Tom is willing to take up the role of Deputy Mayor. Is that agreed, members? Thank you very much. Item 5 is announcements from the Mayor. I don't have any, so let's move on to item 6. We're going into questions from members of the public, which is 2 minutes for a question. And the first one is from Lucy Wayne, please.
Hi, so my first question is, given the enormous and unavoidable health and safety issues with your proposed pitch and putt development on Down Grange, what specifically will you be doing to guarantee that one of our protected groups in the UK, blind or partially sighted people, when walking around Down Grange Park, will be 100% safe from being hit by errant golf balls that they can't see?
Councillor Mackay to respond.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, an equalities impact assessment, which considers the impact of a particular project or piece of work on protected groups, was completed as part of the work to inform the process. Should pitch and putt reprovision plans proceed at Down Grange, the equalities impact assessment will be updated regularly as part of the ongoing project. In relation to pitch and putt course design, the course architect applies safety guidance in line with that used by recognised professional bodies.
I do.
Lucy Wayne, do you have a supplementary?
I do. So I think we'd agree that also the wider general public are entitled to health and safety protection, particularly when it comes to their private employment being safe from council interference should they choose to stand up for a community matter such as saving Down Grange Park. Unfortunately, it was brought to my attention that a member of this cabinet rang a more senior person at my place of employment, identified me, discussed the things I had been saying and doing with regards to Down Grange, and apparently read out content from an email I had sent to the council. Then a senior officer rang my place of work to find out what was said by the councillor in question, and then forwarded an email I'd sent to the council onto my employer. Only my name was identified and only my data was shared to my knowledge. To date, Basingstoke Council are refusing to tell me exactly what of my own data was shared with my employer. This is now under investigation with the top authorities.
Can I just stop you? Can I just stop you, please?
I'm going to ask a question
Your
about
supplementary should have been a supplementary to your first question.
Yes, it is. It's about safety of the public, and breaches of data make the public unsafe. That's why we have laws around it. Okay, so my question is, please can you confirm that no member of the public will ever have their employer contacted or have their personal data breached for simply working hard for their community, and that you will put in place the necessary
I think in the body of the question it was mentioned that this has been investigated by authorities. If it is, obviously that has ramifications for what we can discuss here or hear here. I just wondered what the returning officer thought of that.
I'm afraid it's for Councillor Mackay to answer, Councillor West, not you.
Shall I finish?
Yeah?
Or do you want me to start?
No, you finish, but be quick.
Can you please confirm that no member of the public will ever have their employer contacted or have their personal data breached for simply working hard for their community, and that you will put in place the necessary training to ensure this never happens again?
Councillor Mackay to respond. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I don't see this as a supplementary question, but I'll do my best to give an answer, and that is I have no knowledge of the specific complaint that Ms Wayne is making, but I'm confident that this council will always work to act accordingly under GDPR and any other relevant legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Question 2 from Val Elliott.
Old Down Woodland Park is a loved and well-used wild open space that holds significant value for the wider community and indeed myself. And it provides essential opportunities for recreation, biodiversity and education. It supports our health and well-being and serves as an important habitat for local wildlife. Indeed, it has a beautiful wildflower meadow and has the highest recorded sightings of the small blue butterfly and 24 other different butterflies. As Old Down Woodland Park faces ongoing development pressures and is currently being considered for green space status in the forthcoming local plan update, it is increasingly important to formally recognise its environmental, ecological and community importance. The Old Down Wildlife Group, of which we have some representatives here, has expressed strong support for securing long-term protection for the park and has highlighted that the application window for the 2026 Green Flag Award is now open. They believe, as do I and other residents, that an application by the council would significantly strengthen its success, and they have offered their expertise and assistance in preparing the submission. Given Old Down Woodlands past strong alignment with the Green Flag Award criteria, including welcoming access, public safety, maintenance standards, environmental management, biodiversity, enjoyment and appreciation of nature, heritage, community involvement and volunteered activities, I respectfully ask that the Council will commit to preparing and submitting an application. I also encourage direct liaison with the Old Down Wildlife Group to ensure the best outcomes for our communities and our environment.
Well, thank you very much. Councillor Laura James to respond.
Thank you, Val, for your question. While I'm not the portfolio holder, I will respond for Councillor Tomlin. I'm really pleased to announce tonight that it is our intention as an administration to radically improve the protections afforded to Old Down. We will consult and look to bring forward a decision to designate Old Down as a local nature reserve. We are currently consulting on designing Old Down a local green space in the local plan. We will give Old Down important protections. I know that this has been called for many years. Councillor Kotechka moved a motion on this very subject. Can I also say we'd be very happy to meet with you to discuss your question and the green flag status. We'd be very happy to arrange a meeting in the new year. Can I also say the management of Old Down has significantly improved the quality of the chalk grasslands and overall biodiversity of the site, with the latest Hampshire Biodiversity Information Centre's report 2025 stating the current management regime should be regarded as near perfect and is practically achievable. And I would like to say a really big thank you to everyone who has achieved this.
Hear, hear.
Thank you.
I am delighted.
I take it you've got a supplementary.
I am delighted that there is so much enthusiasm, and I'm sure the supporters with me are equally delighted. I do note in the resident services papers for last Tuesday, for the 16th, that the SWOT analysis for Old Down shows that a threat to it being a site for the pitch and putt is its potential to be a local nature reserve. So I really am delighted that we are really talking about that protection. But I really want to be really clear what the plan is for making sure we get that local nature reserve status. Because I'm hearing at the moment it's more about the green space. So I just want to make sure we're absolutely clear that we're going to get the status.
No, I think it's a misunderstanding. Sorry, there isn't actually. We will be doing both. Well, but possibly three. You might get a green flag as well. So there's all three. So it's exciting stuff. So
brilliant.
I can assure you we will be protecting Old Down.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We come to question 3. Claire Harrison.
Thank you. So my questions relate to the public information meeting regarding Downgrange Park and the pitch and putt and golf centre that's planned there, and the public feedback that was requested and the designs by Weller Designs Limited that was presented. It's for Councillor Cubitt, actually. How many responses did the council receive in reply to their plans to relocate the golf centre and pitch and putt at Downgrange Park?
Can I just say it's up to Councillor Moller if he wants to respond?
Yeah, so I
know you were named. I know you were named, but it's got.
Whilst I was named, I wasn't addressed, so I haven't got a response.
Okay. Councillor Morrow, can you respond to this one?
Yes. Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you. Thanks for the question. Online survey was made available for 3 weeks and received 616 responses. The figure includes both the surveys completed online and those completed in paper format at the public drop-in session held on Wednesday the 10th of September. An email box was also created for responses and has been contacted by 30 separate individuals, although some of those individuals have made contact on more than one occasion. Officers and councillors also carried out engagement with clubs and other users of facilities at Downgrange and Basingstoke Golf Centre.
And you've got a supplementary, I take
I
it?
do, yeah. So at this information meeting, the public were told that Downgrange was selected as a preferred site in January 25. If this is the case, obviously we've got that report through now and we've had a look at it, but it looks like Weller Designs was commissioned to draw up plans. A meeting happened in July 24 with plans submitted in on the 4th of October 24. So that timeline doesn't look right. So could you explain why Downgrange plans were submitted in October 24 if the decision wasn't made till January 25?
I think I'd have to make sure of that timeline with officers, to be honest with you, because
it's page 3 of the Downgrange design report.
So I'll get that back to you. All I can say is that we engaged throughout the process from January, and the designs were changed through that process after listening to people. So it has.
I think it's more about the designs being submitted on the 4th of October in 24.
It's not meant to be a debate, it's 2 questions.
I'll get back to you with a reply.
Okay, thank you. That's it, thank you.
Question 4, Stuart Johnson. Stuart Johnson?
I think Simon's going to ask.
You're going to ask on Mr Johnson's behalf?
I am, Mr Mayor, if I may. Stuart sent me a message saying he's caught in an A road somewhere where a tree is down. So Stuart's question is, at the last full council meeting, we were told the results of the public feedback on Downgrange golf proposals would be released. Why has this not happened, and when can we expect to see it?
Over to you again, Councillor Moran.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Simon, on behalf of Stuart. At the last full a further report on the work to re-provide golf facilities will be considered by Cabinet at our meeting on Tuesday the 6th of January. The report for this meeting is due to go live tomorrow, and this will include a summary of the feedback received as a result of the survey and our engagement with those using Downgrange for a range of different activities. Thanks.
I'm afraid you don't get a supplementary, you know that, don't you? Okay. Question 5 was from Ray Gartland.
Thank you. Does the council acknowledge that Downgrange Park provides a unique environment and safe space in the Kempshire area for physical exercise and mental well-being, and is used regularly by a wide cross-section of the local community?
Councillor Mackay again.
Yeah, thank you, Roy, for your question. We're fortunate to have many green spaces in the borough that people can enjoy in their spare time for formal and informal recreation. Downgrange is one of these valued spaces. Our parks and sports facilities, where people can, for example, run in regular events in a group or on their own, play or practice team or individual sports on pitches in other areas. So they're open spaces where people can exercise, including taking walks with or without dogs in a green environment. There are lots of activities that mean these spaces support physical and mental well-being, as well as giving access to nature.
And your
I don't
supplementary.
feel that fully answered my question, but so I'll go with this question. There are thousands of local residents who consider it to be a unique environment, and if we were to lose use of that environment for its current use, they would have a big impact. What message do you have for those people?
Well, my message is that over a number of months now, the people who don't agree with the proposal that the administration's made have made their views extremely clear. And when a final decision is taken, we can be under no illusions as to the views of the residents expressed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. We're on question 6 now from Bethany Neal.
So I'm representing a group of residents who live in Winchester Road in Kings Furlong. Over the past 18 months, there have been 4 serious collisions on this stretch of road, just by the King of Wessex, including a recent fatality involving a motorcyclist who was just a 17-year-old boy. As a group of residents, we feel if we don't do something now, when are we going to do something? So just to give a bit of context, Winchester Road is a 30-mile-an-hour residential street serving 3 local schools and used daily by hundreds of children, families, pedestrians and cyclists. Despite this, there are currently very few road safety measures and speeding occurs frequently. Our campaign group is calling on Hampshire Highways on behalf of Hampshire County Council to conduct an urgent road safety review and implement measures to make the street safer, including considering a lower speed limit. This campaign has received strong support from local residents and businesses, including Spice and Spirits, SR Pharmacy, the Chinese Takeaway and the King of Wessex. We're planning to engage with the schools in the new year, and our petition is currently just under 500. The question to the Council is, will the Borough Council support our campaign and lobby Hampshire County Council on behalf of local residents and businesses to improve road safety on Winchester Road?
I believe that's down to you, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Betty, for your question. Can I just express first, and most importantly, I think on behalf of the whole Council, I am sure, our deep sadness at the loss of life in the recent incident. Our thoughts go out to the family after such a tragic loss. There are many roads around our borough, I think, where we would seek to reduce the speed and improve the safety. Too many roads have become racetracks. Too often the County Council turns a deaf ear to the legitimate calls to reduce speed limits or improve road safety. Outside our schools, too often it is chaos as parents park everywhere they can to pick up their children. I remember being told by a Hampshire education officer, what happens outside the school is no concern of ours. So we will support the campaign, and very important that we do support the campaign. We'll meet and want to meet with you in the new year, and we will work out together discussing what we can do together more in this particular issue. Hampshire have replied to our inquiry about the situation with the following response. All fatal and potentially fatal incidents are subject to an investigation by the Casualty Reduction Partnership involving an officer of HCC and the police, and a 5-year review of the collision history of the local area. A site visit was undertaken and some initial actions taken, in addition to speaking to residents passing the site and their comments taken into consideration during the assessment. At this stage, the Casualty Reduction Partnership are unable to speculate on the circumstances surrounding the collision. HCC continues to say, at this stage it would be inappropriate to speculate on the circumstances surrounding the fatal collision until the police have concluded their investigations, but some immediate concerns addressing the limitations to the visibility when regressing Pittard Road are already being addressed. This includes issuing a notice to a resident to north of the junction to cut back vegetation, which will also assist ensuring the footway width is preserved, and starting the process to install wooden dragon's teeth in the verge to prevent the ad hoc parking, which will be reinforced with double yellow lines in the future. They then finish by saying that they will continue their investigations. I will make sure you get the full response of that, and that we discuss the full response and the adequacy of that in the context of everything that you're saying. I want to thank Luke Murphy, our MP, for organising a round table on the roads and traffic recently. It was an important meeting. The county sent just one officer, one single officer, just one for that vital conversation, and only one county councillor attended. Hampshire County Council and the police do need to hear the strength of feeling from our community, and we will help express that clearly. I also want to share the full response, as I say, because I think that will guide us in the sort of actions that we think we can take, and I look forward to meeting you and the other residents in the new year.
Thank you. Bethany, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, one please. So thank you for that. I think my other question would be, is there anything within this council's power, for instance, like any funds for speed signs with the smiley faces, for example, just thinking of those things?
There are 2 important points that we need to be really clear on. First of all, as a borough council, we're not the highways authority, and we need to be very clear on that. We don't raise residents' expectations that the borough council can somehow assume the responsibilities of the county. However, there are things that we can do and could look at and we would talk about them with you. There are things that your local councillors can do to support you on those sorts of things. And so let's discuss that in the new year and find a way of achieving some of the things that you want to see achieved.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. That closes questions from the public. Item 7 on the agenda is petitions. We haven't had any petitions submitted. Item 8 on the agenda is resignations and appointments. For just a clarification on the trustees of Basingstoke Charities, there was a previous admin error where Councillor Basham was omitted from the representatives, so instead of being 2 vacancies, there's only 1 vacancy. But if anybody wants to come forward and say they want to be on the trustees of Basingstoke Charities, please do say so. I'll take that as a no at the moment. Councillor Minus-Bone.
Sorry, I know it's completely inappropriate, but whilst you've been speaking, I've been making faces at the monitoring officer because Stuart has now joined us from the A Road where he was blocked. I just wonder whether he was able to ask his question himself.
Well, he's already asked. You've already asked it on his behalf. So unless he's going to say the same thing again, he can have a supplementary. Are you ready, Stuart? Are you ready, mate? Oh, thank you very much then. Thank you, Simon. Thank you very much. We're moving on. And, oh yes, leaders, were there any changes to the structures of the committees at all? No? We'll move on then. Councillor 9, the agenda item 9 is council tax discretionary discounts and council tax support 2026-27. That's for me to move and Deputy Mayor to second. Does anybody wish to speak on this matter?
Is that agreed?
So that's agreed, is it? Thank you very much. Item 10 is a dispensation consideration on the agenda. It doesn't say who, but it's for Councillor Eachis. I'm happy to move that. Is Deputy Mayor happy to second? So that's, no one wants to speak on that? That's agreed then? Item 11, I think we've got to lose you two over there now. Councillor Tuck and Councillor Grassi. It's very similarly, again, I'm moving it, the Deputy Mayor to second. We're inviting anybody to speak. Well, is that agreed and go and get them back? Welcome back. Item 12 is the calendar of meetings for 2026-2027. I'm going to assume you've had a look at these, but I'm happy to move. Deputy Mayor to second. Anybody?
Mayor.
Councillor McCormick wants to speak.
Well, I have a question, Mr. Mayor, and that is when you look at the DC proposed time, we normally have the viewing panel the Friday before, and that would be New Year's Day. So I'm hopeful that we don't have a viewing panel on New Year's Day. I would like to ask if there's any option to move that meeting back a week.
Can I just confer with my colleagues up here? In the words of you two, all is quiet on New Year's Day.
It's on the 4th.
It's actually on the 4th. Councillor McCormack. Thanks for your question, but it's on the 4th. Let's move on to agenda item 13. Yeah, let's agree the calendar of meetings. Have we agreed? Have we agreed? I thought you had. Agenda item 13 is a notion of motion supporting local business logistics through a dedicated lorry park. I can call on Councillor Minus-Bone to move it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we all know in this room that Basingstoke-Deane is one of the South East's most important logistics and business hubs. Our strategic location on the M3, coupled with strong connections to the A33, the A30, the A339, the list goes on, means we serve a rapidly growing cluster of employers who depend on reliable freight and distribution networks. But with that success comes a responsibility to provide the basic infrastructure that underpins it. And let's be absolutely clear, this is not a localised irritation, it is a nationally recognised infrastructure gap. The government's own national survey of lorry parking shows a national shortfall of around 4,500 HGV spaces. Almost a third of English lorry parks are already running at or above capacity. And in the southeast, around a quarter of lorries are ending up in lay-bys or industrial estates because formal sites simply can't cope. Do we see that in our borough over and over again? HGVs parked overnight in lay-bys. In fact, our lay-bys are chock-a-block with lorries, eating into our verges when they're full, going to our rural lanes and parking up in our industrial estates. Drivers left without toilets or washing facilities, residents raising concerns about noise, waste and safety. And the risks extend far beyond inconvenience. The police data shows that around 46% of cargo thefts from lorries happen in streets and lay-bys, and another 27% at service stations. A proper lorry park is not just a business facility, it is a crime reduction measure. There are also welfare issues. The transport focus now finds almost 2/3 of HGV drivers are dissatisfied with the number and quality of places they can stop. If we want safe roads, and we need rested drivers. And rested drivers need somewhere to descent, not a grass verge outside a village at 2 a.m. in the morning, which I've heard only very recently. If we want the benefits of growth, we must also provide the supporting infrastructure. And critically, by planning for a borough-led solution, I would hope we can also reduce the risk of a motorway service station being pushed onto junction 6, adding congestion to the busiest strategic junction we have. Members, this motion does that very simple thing. It requests a feasibility study, a modest, proportionate piece of work to identify suitable locations, assess private sector partnership models, and draw on the existing data sets, including from national highways, and I suspect we have quite a lot of demand mapping locally as well. We cannot complain about lorries in unsuitable places while refusing to even look at providing a suitable place for them to go. This is practical, it is business friendly, and it is community friendly. In fact, I would say it was essential. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Minus-Bone. Councillor Isaac, you're listed as seconder. Do you want to speak now or reserve your right?
Speak now, shall I?
Of course you can.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I support this motion on behalf of local residents and local businesses. There is clearly evidence need for a lorry park to serve companies based in and around Basingstoke. The nearest dedicated lorry parks are, I believe, at Fleet and Southampton. I'm aware in my ward of the problems we get with HGV lorries parked on bridges over the A34, tearing up all the land around it and causing potential risks to users of the road. We've not been able to get any meaningful assistance from the county in dealing with the problem. As a borough with planning responsibilities, we should respond to government policies with regard to lorry parks, which regard lorry parks as essential infrastructure supporting local industry. The draft local plan acknowledges the critical shortage of HGV parking in the wider southeast, a shortage that is forecast to increase. Providing a truck stop here would reduce illegal verge parking by HGVs and would reduce the number of these vehicles that pass through the town. Proposals for lorry parking at the motorway services area at junction 6 of the M3 are unlikely to provide a solution.
Questions turn out to be a bit more complicated than you might expect at first glance. So let's begin with, do we need a lorry park? Strategic location requirement, which is where could we potentially locate a lorry park? Brownfield sites that meet all of those criteria, we'd likely lorry parks tend to deliver lower class, are already let on long-term leases, so there's no ease for these industrial units that we displace, because the economic needs assessment of our local plan says that we have a shortage of industrial logistics units in our borough already. So where would we put those new units that we need to replace? Well, we already know that there aren't enough brownfield sites, so that raises the question, are we prepared to build a lorry park on green space? Removing industrial units, which we do need to provide, for a lorry park, which we're not obliged to offer, will be difficult to justify on planning grounds. So to get consent, we'd need to find an alternative use, or an alternative location for those industrial units that we displace. And that brings us back to the question that we've just been talking about, where would we put the units? So given all of these challenges, we may decide that it could be easier to build a lorry park on greenfield land. But do we really want that as a council? Do we really want to build a lorry park if it means taking up some of our beautiful countryside? Or perhaps we can wait until we inherit some of Hampshire County Council's land that we might get through the local government reorganisation process. Well, in theory, that could work, but I've already had councillors suggesting that we should use that land for housing, for gypsy and traveller sites, which we do need to provide as part of our local plan, and even for a new pitch and putt. So these sites are already very much in danger of getting congested, and we don't even have permission to use them yet. So, do we really want a lorry park, given all of the compromises that it's likely to involve? All of that said, I don't have any issues with asking officers to continue with the work that they've already been doing to explore options. So I'll be supporting this motion, but it might end up being a case of being careful what you wish for. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Next person I've got is Gavin James. Councillor Gavin James.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Andy's covered it pretty well there. Not much to add. What does concern me is the enormous amount of work and effort that could go into something. And given all the challenges and barriers that have been outlined, do we want to go that much further? To reiterate, the point is that a lorry park is not considered employment land, so it's in addition to those sites we've already identified in the local plan. And to put together a local plan for the number of houses that we don't need has already been difficult enough. I don't think we really want to find another greenfield site to turn into a lorry park or a replacement industrial land if the lorry park went somewhere else. So I'll support it, but I think it should be very much a top-down, let's just double-check what the NPPF tells us, get the information that's already available to the council, pull that together, and then have a look at whether we really want to spend many more years, because obviously there is going to be budget implications, which we need to consider, and there's also time implications, recognising this council doesn't have many years left. So I would suggest perhaps you have a very brief report to come to Cabinet so we can consider how much further we want to explore it. So I will support the motion with its intent, and we'll see where we go from there. And obviously, if it comes to Cabinet, we'll consult with the motion's mover and seconder on the content of that report. Thank you.
Many thanks. Councillor Tony Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I will support this. It's quite funny, really, when you look back. There's a few of the older ones here. We were proposing this a number of years ago when there was the land available. And I'm glad all you Conservatives now have changed your mind. There may have been different people there, but it's quite interesting that you've changed your mind. We should have done this years ago. In my ward, Grafton Way, you go up there in the evening, you can't move because of lorries. And then when you go down the A32 or whatever it is, towards Winchester, they're all parked up in the lay-bys. If we ever wanted to use these lay-bys, if the car breaks down, we never be able to. So it's something the county should be helping with. It's the same as the borough. I know we're going over this new way forward, and perhaps we can do it. It may take that long to get it done, but we ought to be doing it and telling the public we need to do it, because it's actually ruining people's lives in as much as they are parking in the middle of the estates where they can find a bit of land. And you have the HGV blooming shunting out at 6 in the morning. Well, It's not good, believe me. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say that I broadly support the motion and certainly the intentions behind the motion. Improving conditions for HGV drivers, reducing unmanaged overnight parking and protecting local amenity are all reasonable and legitimate aims. Commissioning a feasibility study, sorry, I've been unwell lately, so do apologise. Commissioning a feasibility study rather than jumping straight to a decision is the right starting point. What I want to focus on this evening, though, is how we tighten the ask so that the study we commission genuinely answers the right questions and avoids unintended consequences. The motion rightly recognises that Basingstoke sits at the heart of a multi-route logistics network, not just the M3, but also the A33, the A30, the A339. That point is important because HGV movements in this borough are distributed, not funneled through a single corridor. Many of the laybys currently used for overnight parking sit on or immediately adjacent to those strategic routes. Whilst it's not ideal, that often means that HGVs remain on roads already designated to accommodate freight rather than circulating through residential areas. Drivers also have the ability, in many cases, to park overnight at distribution centres and logistic yards without permission, with permission. And again, that context matters because if we identify a single centralised lorry park without fully understanding how drivers will access it, we risk displacing HGV movements off strategic routes and onto local roads that do not currently experience overnight freight traffic. That would be a perverse outcome, solving one issue by creating another. So my first suggesting tightening is this, that the feasibility study should explicitly assess where overnight HGV demand actually exists, how drivers behave today and how different site options would affect movements across the M3, A33, A30 and A339, including any displacement onto local roads. Secondly, the motion refers to secure, well-managed lorry park. I think most members would agree with that in principle, but those words need to be operationalised. A lorry park only improves safety and reduces antisocial behaviour if it is genuinely secure and properly managed. Otherwise, we risk relocating problems rather than reducing them. So I'd encourage us to ensure that the study clearly considers what securely and well managed means in practice. Access control, lighting, safety measures, driver welfare facilities and ongoing site management so that any option brought back is genuinely fit for purpose. Third, I think it would strengthen the motion to ensure that the study does not assume that a single site is the only answer. Given the borough's geography and route structure, it may be that a range of options, whether a single site, multiple smaller route aligned sites or better management of existing facilities delivers better outcomes with fewer impacts. Finally, Mr Mayor, on process and governance, the 6-month reporting timeframe is reasonable, but we should be clear that what comes back is an options appraisal, setting out feasibility, risks, delivery models and partnerships, rather than an implied commitment to a particular solution. Now, none of these points, I think, undermine the intent of the motion. In fact, they strengthen it. They ensure that when this comes back to scrutiny, Cabinet can demonstrate that the borough has properly tested demand, network impacts, community effects and deliverability, rather than being boxed into a solution that looked attractive on paper but created new issues on the ground. I did have a number of amendments, 7 in total, but I'm going to scrap all of those because they're all kind of all over the place. But the one I do think that should stand is that the point around the 6-month reporting requirement, Mr Mayor. The original wording states, report back to the Environment and Infrastructure Overview and Scrutiny Committee within 6 months with options. I just propose the following wording, that to report back to the Environment and Infrastructure Overview and Scrutiny Committee within 6 months with an options appraisal, including high-level feasibility risks, potential delivery models, partnership opportunities and funding considerations before considering next steps. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, that's an amendment. Yeah. Do you have a seconder for your amendment?
I'm sure one of my friends in the Labour group would love to put their hands up because I've debated it well with them.
Are you accepting the amendment?
You're now debating the amendment, not the substantive.
Now we're continuing to debate the amendment, not the substantive, but I have got Councillor McCormack to speak next. Yeah. No. I've got you to speak next, by the way.
Okay, I was going to speak on the substantive motion.
Yeah. But does anybody else want to speak on the amendment? No. 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 So we'll go back to substantive. Is that agreed then, the amendment? Agreed.
Now you're back to the substantive.
Now we're back to substantive. Councillor McCormack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So
as amended.
As amended. It won't change what I was intending to say because much what I wanted to say has been said already. I had an approach from a resident about lorries in residential areas on the edge of my ward. We've already heard from other councillors with similar problems. So Harrow Way, Grafton Way, A339, A34. In fact, there are a lot of lay-bys built on Newbury bypass ostensibly for people to stop in their cars and have a picnic. I very rarely see cars on the numerous lay-bys there. They're all full of lorries. Many of them are staying overnight. The only thing I would say about this motion, saying we don't want a car park or lorry park near Junction 6 the M3, we do have a life planning application with a service station near Junction 6 the M3. So be careful what you wish for, because that in itself would probably meet a lot of the demand for overnight parking for lorries. If we look at other parts of the south, generally these do tend to be near the busy roads and in particular on motorways. So I'm thinking of Junction 11, the M40, where they've got facilities including a very extensive charging, e-vehicle charging by Instavolt based in Basingstoke. Junction 16 and 17 of the M4 similarly, and some of these are for charging of lorries as well as parking of lorries. And if we're not going to have it at Junction 6 the M3, an obvious other one would be Junction 7 the M3, where we've got some land that was once used for travellers. The county own it, the new council will end up owning it, and there may be some scope there to have the asset generating money in terms of having a cafe facility for people stopping and charging, etc., etc. There used to be a lorry park, a Blue Hut Cafe, where the Holly Blue pub is now. So clearly there was historic demand before the motorway was built. And if you look at where lorry drivers are parking in the A339 is a lay-by there, that's a very popular spot to park. It does concern me a bit that where a lot of these lorry drivers are parking, there are no toilet facilities or overnight facilities at all. That doesn't seem right, and we should seriously consider providing that as part of any provision if they're staying overnight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor West.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas, everyone. I think it's important to acknowledge that this time of year, especially HGV drivers are doing the Lord's work in making sure that we get all of the deliveries we need over Christmas. Most of us are ordering constantly. That means lots of things being shipped all over the country. There's more stock being sold in shops all over the country. Those HGV drivers are making the country work at this time of year. I think this opportunity to build not just a lorry park, but also potentially a hub for those people who are doing that work in our area. It's been talked about how we are in this strategic place in the region. Obviously, a lot of the stuff coming from Solent requires us to go to the Midlands. We're in that real key area, and there's a lot of underused potential with HGVs. There's so much more we can be doing in logistics and heavy goods in the borough for our economy and also for the wider Hampshire and South East economy. As the chair of E&I, obviously really welcome this motion. I think it's an important area that we've not spent a lot of time looking at and scrutinising our policies on locally. So I think there's an opportunity here for us to look at this in a more broad way, where we also look at, okay, what else are we doing to make sure that our strategy around heavy good vehicles and logistics is joined up. And I think there's that opportunity to look at where there might be further investment into things like hubs for HGV drivers, into making sure that we've got the right logistics facilities in the borough to increase that logistics capacity. So yeah, I'm very keen to look into this as the chair of the scrutiny committee and look forward to having the report, hopefully report back.
Thank you. Councillor Ganesh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As someone who stopped by one of these lay-by to get a kebab late in the night, I can certainly welcome this motion, because what I say is all these lay-bys overflowing, and when you leave first thing in the morning, well early, like 4:30 or 5 in the morning, what you see is some of these big containers who were meant to deliver for our local co-op or some of these local supermarkets just parked where they should be parked elsewhere. But what happens is it's really an issue for some of our residents who live right next to some of our supermarkets, who will be listening this massive freezers working all night. So it's not answering Andy's question about whether do we really need it. We definitely need one, but it's a matter of how we plan it, because as mentioned clearly, the Basingstoke and Dean sits right in the heart of whether you're driving in from Winchester or Newbury or Reading, you will always see some of these lay-bys packed, and we currently don't have any such facilities where some of these drivers can spend their time waiting for the right time to deliver with the right facilities like toilet and everything. So a properly managed lorry park would improve safety, reduce nuisance crime, and support drivers' welfare. So importantly, this motion is it doesn't commit council to build. So what this motion is asking, is simply asking a feasibility study and proper engagement with businesses and highway partners, and report back to the committee with the findings. So I'm sure, I'm glad to see the support from around the chamber for this motion, and hopefully we get to see the benefits of it at some point as part of the local plan, or along the line at some point in a few years. Thank you.
Thank you. Have we exhausted the members' contributions, or Councillor Jones? Julian Jones.
Mr. Chairman, with reference to the comments from Councillor McCormack, I think he suggested peak COPs might be used for this area, and given that we have substantial development on Alsop Fields and the old golf course, and indeed an warehouse development, I'm not sure that would be a sensible place to cause congestion approaching the M3. In addition, I think we should look at the local plan's suggested new warehouse sites and consider whether they couldn't provide parking on those sites and facilities for the drivers, rather than creating a new park elsewhere.
Thank you. You to sum up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to everybody for your contributions. Just to deal with a couple of points, Councillor, I think you're absolutely right. Since this motion has been out in the public domain, have many people already suggesting many sites where lots of those facilities that you mentioned already exist. I think there is something about seeing this through the eyes of a landowner, not the local plan and a local plan authority, because charging huge lorries with lots of electricity, I'm sure, is an opportunity that we could have. I must admit, Mr. Mayor, I often sit here smirking to myself when we talk about how much easier and more wonderful the world will be when we are the Highways Authority, because the world will be a wonderful place, won't it? We are the Highways Authority, and all the problems that all highways authorities have up and down the country will float away. I suspect we may have to look at multiple options. I hope the feasibility study will also look at how lay-bys can be improved, the ones that we have, so things like verges aren't encroached upon. And finally, Councillor Jones, you're absolutely right. I am a lot younger than I look. Absolutely. I've also had other comments, Mr. Mayor, that this will attract lorries, and I just want to be really clear. All the studies suggest that it won't attract lorries. It will just deal with all the lorries that we already have. It does not create traffic. It manages it, and it manages it responsibly. And fundamentally, I hear everybody's concerns, but I am absolutely a big fan of doing simply what the motion says, which is coming up with a feasibility study and does everything that Councillor Lee suggested in his amendment. If we vote for this, and I think we will, I think it is a very sensible first step to future-proofing our economy, protecting our communities, and supporting the drivers that, as has been said, we absolutely depend on, and sometimes they put their life at risk unconsciously and unknowingly because of the facilities that are not provided.
I get the impression that members are in favour of this without a vote, but I could be wrong. But you want it? Oh, you want a vote? Okay, let's have a vote then. You can, of course you can. There's two that haven't voted. If they'd like to vote, I don't know who they are. Councillor Tuck, we don't think you voted. We don't think you voted. Right. Thank you very much. That motion is carried, members. Let's move on to agenda item 14. Which is a motion about the government proposal to delay the Hampshire and Isle of Wight mayoral election from May 26 to May 28. Councillor Bound to address us.
Yes. Isn't it great for us having lots of agreement in the chamber, Mr. Mayor? I am proposing this motion because what is happening to local democracy across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight now goes far beyond administrative tidying up. It is about cancelled elections, it's about delayed devolution, it's about lost investment, and frankly, broken trust. At the heart of this issue is the decision by the Labour government to cancel the May 2026 mayoral election for the Hampshire and Isle of Wight mayor, a decision with serious democratic and economic consequences. I want to remind members of the words of Jim McMahon, the previous Labour minister responsible for devolution, spoken in the House of Commons, because his words describe precisely the situation we now face. He said that local leaders across the political spectrum acted in good faith, met statutory tests, completed the consultation, and reasonably expected this government to honour its side of the bargain. That is exactly what happened here. Councils across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, and indeed in this authority, worked constructively and collaboratively. They followed a process by government. They prepared for mayoral elections in 2026 because that is what ministers said would happen. Yet despite that, the current government has cancelled the mayoral election, pushing it back not by months, but by 2 full years. This, Mr. Mayor, is not a neutral act. By delaying the mayor, the government is also delaying devolution itself, with at least us missing out on £80 million in funding, alongside major opportunities for investment in transport, skills, infrastructure and regional growth. It is vital to separate the two things out that government continues to conflate. Devolution, which brings opportunity, funding and momentum, for which we are ready and have been for some time, and local government reorganisation, which brings cost, complexity and risk, and is the only element where additional time could reasonably be argued. If ministers genuinely believe something needs more time, it is local government reorganisation, not the democratic mandate for a mayor. And even if the government insists that the mayoral election must be delayed, there is a sensible compromise that cannot be ignored. A 1-year delay to May 27 would still allow time for reorganisational work, while avoiding the serious problems created by a May 2028 election. A 28 election delays investment and delays decision making, which is unnecessary. It immediately places new unitary councils that vest on the 1st of April 2028 into mayoral purdah, preventing them from promoting themselves or speaking publicly in their crucial first weeks. And it forced a cost of £5 million across 15 councils for standalone elections. Holding the mayoral election alongside the shadow unitary elections would instead share costs, provide stability, and allow the new strategic authority to be formed with the mayor and unitary leaders working together from day one. Members will have accepted this, we've accepted this amendment that you'll see in front of you, and its intent is important. It reinforces that local government has not asked for elections to be cancelled, and that councils are working towards elections taking place as planned, as residents expect. That point was underlined today by the leader of Hampshire County Council, who made it clear that county elections are vital for democratic accountability. He has not requested a postponement, and he expects elections to take place in May 2026. Taken together, this makes one thing abundantly clear. The drive to council elections is coming from Westminster, not us as local councils. Mr. Mayor, this motion is not anti-devolution, it is not anti-progressive. It is pro-democracy, pro-certainty and pro-growth. It calls on government to stop cancelling elections, stop delaying opportunity and start honouring the commitments it has already made.
Thanks, Councillor Carr. I haven't asked you yet. Would you like to reserve your right to speak? Well done. Hold on. I'm in charge, not you. Councillor Harvey, I believe you got an amendment.
That's what I'm asking to move, Mr. Mayor. If I could move an amendment, Mr. Mayor, I think I would like to pick up effectively where Simon's left off and amend the motion to reflect what has happened today. And it's been quite a significant day. I think the one thing that we would all agree on, I hope, is that democracy is precious. And beware any politician that starts to interfere in the process between the residents, the electorate and the ballot box. Government today has announced in a ministerial statement this afternoon and in a letter that I received reinforcing that ministerial statement that it is for the councils to decide, to tell them by January the 15th whether or not we wish to postpone the May 26 elections here in Basingstoke-Dean. It is for Hampshire County Council, as they did last year, because let's not forget, be honest about this, Hampshire voted to postpone their elections last year and asked government to do it. They're not doing it this year, that's changed. But that we have that choice. I think it's really important to put it on record, and I feel very strongly about this, I'm sure others do, that we have a duty to ensure that our residents have the opportunity to vote at the elections in May. It is not for this council, I believe, to cancel democracy in Basingstoke. Simon is right. The process of the mayoral elections is complicated because were it to be continued in 2028, on the 1st of April, the situation would be that we would have shadow authorities that would be absolutely unable to comment. They would be stuck in a process that they would have no control over because the mayoral election would be in full swing. And so you couldn't advertise, you couldn't promote, it would be very complicated in the process. That has been very clearly expressed to ministers, and I thank the upper tier authorities in our region for making that very, very clear. That actually 2027 would make a lot more sense. It would still be on the government timetable, it would still involve the opportunity to operate the new electoral system they're talking about, which makes sense, but it would also involve clarity. and that's important. In terms of the district voice, that is a matter to be debated. And I think the district voice heard in that new combined authority, whatever it is a matter for continued discussion. And we need to make sure that our voice is heard. In terms of local government reorganisation, we are going to have to do some really heavy lifting. And we're going to have to do an awful lot of work in the process over the next few years. Having the electoral mandate to do that is really important. It is far more complicated when you say it's potentially taken a 7-year term into account for a county councillor, which would be the case if you cancelled the elections. That is not democracy. We need to have that electoral mandate to be here representing our residents' interests and that they have backed us openly at the ballot box for those things. So in terms of the motion, what we've asked for in paragraph 2 of the council resolves is simply to reflect the Secretary of State's title and that I would write as leader on behalf of this council with the co-leader to the government on that basis. I've asked the amendment be made to the mover and seconder of the motion for number 3, that the leader of the council write to the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government confirming, following the ministerial statement of the 18th of December, that this council will not be applying to delay our elections, and we affirm that it is our belief that the elections for Basingstoke and Dean Borough should go ahead in May 2026. And if that is approved and if that is agreed, that means we can do so to meet the timetable of January the 15th that I'm obligated to reply by. And then I've asked to add a section 6, a little 6, that the leader of the council write in support of the position it is understood of Hampshire County Council that the county elections should not be postponed again and that they should be held in May 2026, which would chime with the rest of the councils across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight and the conversations that are taking place. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I hope that the amendment is acceptable to the mover and seconder and that we would support it.
Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Jacob.
Happy to second the amendment.
Do you want to speak now or do you want to reserve the right? Well, Now, we're looking for people to speak on the amendment rather than substantive. So I've got a list of people. Councillor Lee, you're down to speak.
Yeah, I'm down to speak against the substantive. I also agree with
It's the amendment. This is the amendment.
This is the amendment we're talking about now. Well, speak on the amendment then.
No. People speaking on this amendment.
Right, we got people that want to speak on the amendment only. Councillor West.
Can I firstly just say that I, whilst I will be in its current language voting against this motion, the amendment itself, on paragraph 3, I'm in favour of. I think that that's really important that we set out that our group, as far as I'm aware, and obviously we've got the news today, so as far as I'm aware, our group's position and the position of most councils in this room will be that we want elections to go ahead. I know in our group we've been prepared for that for several months. We've had people out there on the doors campaigning, making sure that the residents know who they are. I know Bickham and Brookvale spoke to a couple of hundred residents already. So I think, yeah, we want those elections to go ahead. For us, it's difficult because this is really now 2 motions. One motion that is about these elections, which I think is a very separate issue from the mayoral decision. So it would be my preference to ideally vote on those as separate motions, but what we've been presented with is going to be more difficult than that. So I'd prefer if this amendment weren't an amendment, but 2 separate motions that we can vote on because these are 2 completely separate issues.
Councillor McCormack, you want to speak on the amendment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm very keen that we get local elections go ahead in May for both the borough and the county. The problem that I see is when you have people with prolonged terms of office. I don't think that's healthy. I will reserve any comments on the mayoral election for the substantive motion, but I think it's also incumbent on us to, I'm sure I'll get agreement on this, 4-year terms. I mean, even if we have all-out elections every 4 years, which is what the county currently does, 4-year terms gives the public an opportunity to change their representative if they think they're going too far down in the wrong direction on anything. And to have somebody in post for 7 years or longer, it just doesn't sit well with me. you know, that you could have somebody in for that length of time. And if you have an administration in for that length of time, potentially they could do a lot of damage that would take an equal amount of time to undo. I would also say that the county, in voting to postpone elections, are probably... There will be people that will be pleased that we don't have a reform county council, let's put it that way, bearing in mind what's been happening with some of the reform councils up and down the land. However, we have to go with what the public says at the ballot box. And when we don't have that, we have situations like we've had in the past in America, where, you know, you get into serious constitutional trouble. I've said my piece. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to be really brief. I just wanted to thank Councillor Harvey. I think we had a very productive conversation when we both wanted to make amendments after today's news. And unfortunately, our spirit of both of our amendments, we could sort of make sure that we got what we both needed. So thank you very much.
Councillor Ibrahim on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I welcome the amendments that has been made, which is resonate with me, and we all know that the Labour government is undertaking the biggest reform to local government in perhaps 50 years or more. These reforms, we know, they will speed up decisions, improve services, and empower communities. And as part of this process, the councils that are going through the reorganisation has been invited to make a decision. This is devolution in action. We've been invited to go to the central government and say, yes, we're ready, we have the capacity to do both local election and reorganisation at the same time, or not. So I think that's, in a way, it's a devolution action, and I'm very surprised that the angle that has been taken on this was the opposite, as if it's taken away. If anything, the government giving us the final decision, or not the final decision, proposal to say, yes, we want to go ahead. And I'm in support with this if the council has a capacity to do both without compromising reorganisation. So I think that needs to be acknowledged in a way, and just not kind of get lost into the political scores that some of our colleagues here are trying to make. Yeah. And if the elections proceed, which I can see there is a sort of agreement with that, I urge administration to work with the returning officer to ensure everything is in place and we're ready to go, because that's important. I would really want to support this motion, but unfortunately, I can see two separate issues, as my colleague was saying earlier. The mayor will have a very different position on the mayoral election, so that's why I'm very hesitant to support this motion. If we are to either split the motion or sit together and make amendments to take away all the mayoral election inaccuracy that I can see in here, I'm happy to support this motion. Otherwise, I'll be reluctant to. Thank you.
Gavin James.
Thank you. First of all, I don't support splitting this. This is a pro-democracy motion that's been amended for more pro-democracy. So I don't know why we'd split it at all. But I'm speaking to the amendment. I appreciate what the Labour members are saying, but of course last year the county councils were not cancelled, they were delayed, they were postponed for 1 year. That was supported by certain members of the county council that represent Basingstoke and Dean area. That includes Councillor Henderson from the Conservatives, Councillor Thacker from the Conservatives, Councillor Reid from the Conservatives, Councillor Vaughan from the Conservatives, Councillor Mellor from the Conservatives, Councillor Still from the Conservatives, all voted to postpone those elections. Also, Councillor Tastain from Labour and Councillor Taylor from the Conservatives or Labour, I'm never sure. She tends to vote with the Conservatives. The only person who voted against cancelling elections was me, and I was proud to do so because democracy matters. The great thing is about this, unlike the mayoral elections, which takes government legislation to create the post, and then which they forgot to do on time, which is probably why it's really delayed, and then you've got government legislation to create the elections for that post, it's different for the county council elections. Those people exist. There's people in those roles. Those elections exist. So I will be supporting the motion as amended, if it is amended. But what's more, I want to make a commitment tonight that if the elections are cancelled by sleight of hand, if the government announce that regardless of our views, because that's all they're inviting by the 15th of January is our views, if the government do decide to cancel the elections, the county council elections, I do not think it right that I carry on into a 6th year. So therefore, if they cancel the elections in March, as long as I'm joined by my other 9 county council colleagues from Basingstoke Dean, I will resign my seat and fight the election as if it was on the same date it would have happened anyway. Because you can't cancel it if I make it happen. So I'm just looking, and 2 of them are here tonight, Councillor Manleni and Councillor Tustain can agree tonight that if we are not allowed to have the election as planned, that we will resign our seats and fight one anyway. That's my offer. I'll see if the others follow it.
Can you speak through the chair?
I'm not for election in the borough.
We're not at school, are we? Councillor Ganesh, you can now reserve a seconder for the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to speak as amended the motion. So I see the motions about the postponing the elections last May. The idea behind was to have it as one election for mayoral in May 2026. So we are here today in a situation where the mayoral elections cancelled, and we've just heard the announcement postponed or cancelled for next May, and heard about giving the options or the right to choose by the councils whether they want to have the elections in May 2026, which is completely against the democracy that we've been taught or we've been hearing, and we are here as an elected representatives. I think, as councillors for Basingstoke and Dean, we have a duty to speak up. So we must advocate for transparency, integrity and accountability, as mentioned clearly. So cancelling the elections or postponing the elections May 2026 for county and borough, counties will let the members to continue for 7 years. So we owe it to our residents to ensure that the democratic rights are upheld and they are fully informed about what's happening, and make the members, the elected representatives, accountable. So what we should do in Basingstoke is we stand firm and we should defend these principles. We must make clear, not just to our residents, but if we need to write to Secretary of State or Prime Minister, whoever is trying to delay the elections for various reasons, to make sure that we do have all these elections as planned, and to make sure the democracy is upheld in Basingstoke and Dean, as well as the county around Basingstoke. Thank you.
Thanks very much. No more speakers on the amendment, so for you to sum up, Councillor Harvey, on the amendment.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments that have been passed, but this is the opportunity for us to state a very clear opinion, and that is why the amendment has been moved to the motion that's before us. We have until January the 15th to make our view clear to the government. That's all we're doing. We're making the view clear to government. The ultimate point is they will decide. And so I think I've heard the Chamber this evening. If the motion is supported, and the amendment is supported, then we will obviously have a very clear view from Basingstoke and Dean that we do not want to postpone the elections and we will not cancel democracy in Basingstoke and Dean. And I think that's a really clear message to send. I appreciate that other councillors did other things in other chambers last year. They've now got the tests to prove on this vote, on this occasion, that they would do something different. They do also in the County Council chamber, because it will have to go to the County Council for a view and an opinion at some point. I hope it does, and if it doesn't, and it's just the executive that make the decision, that would be a shame. Because I think every county councillor should state, exactly as Gavin has just done actually, because that's how you would create an election, by creating all those by-elections that would suddenly happen, and wouldn't that be democracy? In the sense of it, I think if the amendment is accepted, the motion should be supported, and our view is clear, and I'll write to government as such, if that is what you asked to do.
Now, we're going to vote on this amendment. I take it we want a recorded vote, because you'll ask for it anyway.
It's just on the text of the amendment.
Yes. Yes. That amendment is carried, members. Now, Councillor Lee, did you have another amendment that you want to suggest?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a number of amendments, and I do apologise to the proposer of the motion and the second. I've been absolutely smashed with work over late and with family. So I think it's important to note, and I do think that this motion maybe should have come as two separate motions. We've been conflating a lot here. One is about the mayoral elections. Number two is about local elections being cancelled and democracy. That's two separate things. The motion starts with mayoral elections, and the whole debate so far has been about local elections being cancelled. I'm struggling to see how we've managed to conflate that in the space of about 25 minutes. But I think I do want to start from a place, that I think most people will agree with in this chamber, is that I am pro-democracy. And I'm also pro-clarity, and we can take the smirks from some of the people on the left here. I'm quitting in May of this year. I want elections to take place because I'm going, right? I really don't care about anything else. I am standing down, and I want somebody to replace me, whether that's Labour, preferably, Tory, Independent, Lib Dem, Reform. I don't care because I'm going. I'm standing down. Just that as a premise. The motion does raise legitimate concerns, okay, in the sense that the public were told that they were going to be able to elect a mayor in 2026, and that this has been now moved to 2028. Now, this does risk undermining trust unless the reasons are clearly explained and the revised plan is transparent. But it's also important that we are precise about what a delay practically changes. Before a mayor exists, this council and other existing councils still govern. We still set budgets, we still deliver services, and we still make local decisions under our statutory duties. In that sense, there is no vacuum where local government stops functioning. What is more real is that the accountability and mandate question. Now, the whole point of a directly elected mayor is that residents get to choose a person with a region-wide mandate to set direction and be held accountable. If that election is delayed, that particular democratic moment is delayed too. Now, there is further nuance. The government consultation obviously makes clear that the combined county authority would gain functions from day one, once established in law. And it even describes arrangements for when the mayor's office is vacant, including acting arrangements through a deputy mayor drawn from the constituent members. Now, this suggests that there could be an interim period where strategic decisions and structures are being put in place without an elected mayor in post. If that is the route the government intends to take, then scrutiny and transparency become even more important and not less. Now, where I think that the current motion, as amended, overreaches is in the language about motives. It states that commentators have raised the concerns that the delay may be politically motivated. Now, I'm not persuaded, and I don't know whether the head of law and governance has checked into this, but I'm not persuaded that we should attribute motive in a council resolution unless it is evidenced and on the record. Now, in a mixed chamber, that kind of wording can turn what should be a governance discussion into a political one. And it risks weakening the credibility of the wider ask for clarity. So if we want to land this constructively, I would encourage us to focus on what we can reasonably request and what residents will benefit from. So I've got some amendments, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to share, I've got a printout of these amendments, or I'm happy to read them out.
Clearly state what they are.
Okay.
You've only got 1 minute.
Okay, so I think we need to remove the line about national and local commentators have already raised concerns being politically motivated, and replace that with the concerns have been raised nationally and locally about the impact of delaying the inaugural mayoral election on democratic confidence, and that residents and councils require a clear evidence-based explanation for the proposed change in timetable. The second one is to remove the formally oppose the Labour government's proposal to delay blah blah blah, to express concern about the proposed delay to the inaugural Hampshire and Isle of Wight mayoral election and request that the government clearly sets out the justification for the delay, including the democratic governance and accountability implications. I would also suggest, as I'm, like I said, standing down, Mr. Mayor, that we add in that we request that the Secretary of State publish a clear, updated timetable covering devolution legislation, interim governance arrangements before the election of a mayor, local government reorganisation milestones, and the revised date for the first mayoral election. Number 2, to seek confirmation of which
You'll have to sum up quickly.
Strategic decision powers and funding allocations may be exercised by any interim or shadow arrangements before the election of a mayor, and what scrutiny and accountability mechanisms will apply during that period. And number 3, request clarity on the status and timing of scheduled May 26 elections, with the area confirming whether any changes are proposed as a result of devolution or local government reorganisation. Now, I know they've consulted, but I think we should add...
You really have to sum it up.
Have a good evening.
Cheers. Before I say ask for a second, I'll just let you know, I think this is quite an important motion, so I'm going to suspend the standing orders, which reduce it to 20 minutes and extend that. Now we're going to ask for a seconder for that amendment. Are you going to reserve your right to speak on this amendment?
Would you like a copy so you can read through rather than...
Councillor Bound, do you accept the amendment?
No, I don't, Mr. Mayor. I'm prepared to accept 2 of them, and that's why I want to see the words, because I've got the themes, but I'd quite like to see the words, if I maybe just give them a moment.
Of course you can. Checking the legality of it. Councillor Bound, do we accept the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm prepared to accept the additional recommendations, resolutions number 1 and number 2, and that's it.
That's it. And where do we go now? We get a second to speak. He reserved his right, didn't he?
So definitely, so he's accepted it. So you're now asking, does anyone want to speak on the amendment, on those 2 amendments?
Yeah, so what we're asking for now is speakers on those 2 amendments only. As Councillor Bounds only accepted those 2, can we have speakers on those 2 amendments? Councillor Ganesh first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While I'm happy to see some form of amendments coming in a motion proposed by the Conservative group from the Labour group, but the bit I'm struggling to agree is the delay may be politically motivated rather than that. The removing that will take the entire essence of this motion, because we've heard from our Prime Minister himself saying the threat or the concerns of having the reform councils around the country. So there is a bit of political motivation behind it, and not only the Prime Minister, we've heard from our fellow councillors today about the concerns of having a reform council. This is not about Conservative reform or Labour. This is about having the elections and making sure our residents will have their say on what they believe is right for where they live. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Modis-Bone, you're up again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I won't repeat my colleagues' comments about it being political. The bit I'm going to pick up on is that suddenly this government has conflated the issues, and they've conflated it by a theme which, as Councillor Harvey says, is the most important theme for this chamber, which is democracy. That is the thrust, that is the spirit, that is what is important. And to pick up Councillor Lee's issues about what is it that our residents are missing, it is absolutely the functions that are about strategic planning. Of all local authorities, this chamber should be concerned about the powers of strategic planning. What that means for all of our officers' work about local plans, all of the concerns from our residents about strategic sites, what that means for infrastructure delivery. We have had those debates for years and years. And in addition to that, literally, I have never seen an opportunity with so many noughts on it for millions and millions of pounds of investment that we, as Hampshire and Isle of Wight residents, will be missing out on. So I'm sorry, that is why I do not accept any of the other amendments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Noted. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just picking up the fact, obviously, that we are discussing 2 additional resolves, so logically they become resolves 8 and resolves 9 of the motion that will be then substantive if we support. Just to be absolutely clear on that for everybody. The 2 extra pieces are interesting because in the first context, request the Secretary of State to publish a clear updated timetable covering devolution legislation. Well, the bill is set down and the process is set in train in Westminster itself, so that's a pretty clear timetable, so they should be able to do that. Interim governance arrangements, they're being discussed with the 4 upper tier authorities as they exist in Hampshire right now, negotiating with government to discuss what those interim governance arrangements may look like. We also have a role to play in that because the district councils at the moment do not have a seat at the table. And we need to have those conversations about how our voice would be included within that combined authority. I was really disappointed, and this is not a political point but a factual point, that the previous government and the current government still do not give district councils a seat at the table. That goes for all of our fellow councils around the country. Districts have a voice too. In terms of the election of the mayor and local government reorganisation milestones and the revised date for the first mayoral election, again, they're all matters that the process is going through right here, right now. In terms of the 9 resolution, determining what strategic decisions, powers, funding allocations may be exercised, there's 2 parts to this. There is no negotiation. What the government have said is, you will get the powers we give you in a box. There is no Andy Burnham or Andy Street sitting around the table having a conversation about whether they may get health powers or various other powers around transport. What the government have said thus far is that we will give you a set of powers. You prove to us that you can deliver those powers and be good with those powers, and then we might give you some more. That's the process by which they're deciding which strategic decisions and powers and funding we're going to get. The funding piece is important because it's changed. Having moved the date of the election, the money associated with creating the mayor next year will be different now to the context of it in 28. And we just need to be aware of that. So I totally understand the point in 9, and that's also worth asking of government to be clear on that. In terms of exercise by the interim or shadow arrangements, well, that is important, and we've all said that already, because the shadow councils elected in 2027 are going to find it difficult operating with a shadow combined authority that doesn't look the same as what it's going to be when the mayor is elected. There are huge complications with the decision the governments have made now that conflate these 2 things together, but we're working through it. And it's about being constructive as well between us as local government and central government to try and find a solution. And I hope that the ministers, and they've indicated to us that they are listening. And then what scrutiny and the accountability mechanisms will apply during that period? Well, we exist. We're not going to disappear until about 1st of April 2028. and so will our fellow council. So we will scrutinise. We'll have that ability to bring it back here, and we should do so to be comfortable amongst all of us that the arrangements are what we expect them to be and we want them to be and that they're good enough. And so that's again a point that's fair, that scrutiny and accountability mechanisms will apply during that period. So I respect that the mover of motions accepted those 2 points and I'm happy to support them.
Councillor McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can understand why parts of the amendments have been rejected. I think the amendments are excellent. But this is about political point scoring at the end of the day, isn't it? And you don't want that. Well, we'll get on to that when we debate the substantive.
Address
the mayor.
Address the mayor.
Yep.
Address the mayor. Not
I've just had some back chat. I'm more than happy for you to address the back chat, Mr. Mayor. At the end of the day, I would urge this council to be constructive in this process and show a level of maturity and professionalism in engaging with the government and not trying to score cheap political points. Thank you.
Councillor Abraham Councillor Abraham to second the motion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to point out to a few things, because the amendment is meant to complement what our colleagues want to do, but also make a point here around some of inaccuracy that has been presented in the motion. And when I say that, because I've had the opportunity to discuss the issue with the Minister of Devolution, and that was very clear. This is not about political motivation. This is about practicality and implementation. This is, if we look at the devolution reorganisation and mayoral election, it's a huge undertake. It's a huge project. There are timelines, there are things, but eventually along the way there will be things that require some change and adjustment. How many times have we here in the council for any project, whether small or big, had to revisit it and make some changes, amendment, and being responsive to the wider environment? But this is one point. The other point is around when we talk about taking the people right to democracy, cancelling election, it's not existing rule. It's being introduced. It hasn't been yet to be an election or existing mayor rule. So that's another point of accuracy that I want to point out here. The last aspect around, again, was the amendments that we made. It's around why we're doing this, why it's been delayed. Eventually, looking at this, we're not inventing the wheel. This has been done in other regions. It has been done very successfully in North, in particular, of the country. This is where you have authority established first, and then mayor comes in, not the other way around. And if we want to get this right, we want to do it right, we might need to keep politics aside for now. And if you really, the intention of this motion is about people interested in delivering for this, for our resident, so perhaps I would really put back this to Councillor Minus-Bound and look into the amendment. I accept them, then we can all move along and get on with what we want to deliver for residents. If this is about political scoring, that's a whole different scenario. So I really urge you to reconsider your position on accepting the amendments made by Councillor Lee. Thank you.
Councillor Lee to sum up his amendment. It's been accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to, I guess, address a few points. Thank you, Simon, for firstly going for the two amendments. I would say, though, that the acceptance or the lack of acceptance of the other amendments and your reasons for not accepting them are, worlds apart. Okay, strategic planning and what the text of the actual motion is, that they don't correspond. Whilst I understand the frustration, delaying a mayoral election does not prevent local authorities from making those strategic decisions. We can still, you can put your head in your hand, Councillor Carr, but we can still set corporate plans, we can still agree local plans, we can still, as a county council, they can still develop transport, housing, economic growth and regeneration strategies. They can. It's a fact. They're still there as councils, so they can still do the job that they've been doing today, all the way up to today, tomorrow. They can do it again the day after. They can do it again the day after that. We can still approve medium and long-term capital programmes. We can still enter into partnership strategies with neighbouring authorities. We can still do all of those things tomorrow, the day after. It doesn't take a mayor being in place for us to do those. The words of the text are politically charged. Now, there are people in this chamber who put on newsletters people before politics. If you want to accept the words on that motion as not being political, I suggest changing the text on your leaflets, because that is politically motivated on there. So, I think I don't understand why that particular words or the text can be taken out in replace for the others. It still gives you the same premise of the motion. It still gives you the same oomph of the motion. But I think, that text itself is politically motivated. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. So, now, for clarity, we're going to have a vote, and we're voting on the two amendments that have been accepted. And they're number 1 and 2 on the bit of paper that's been sent round. So let's have a vote. I think it'll be a recorded vote again on this amendment. Councillor Johnston, call in. Councillor Johnston, have you voted? That amendment is carried. Now, for clarity, we are now going to debate the motion that has been amended twice. So we'll invite speakers on the motion that's been amended twice. We're invited speakers, or we just might ask Councillor Carr to second it. Anybody want to speak on it? Come on. No. So, Councillor McCormick, please do so.
Okay, I would say we've got two levels of change going on. We've got a mayor being introduced and we've got local authorities being reorganised. When you look at existing successful mayoral models, they have been put in place above an existing unitary model, where the best examples of it working have been when the underlying unitary councils have been working well together and providing a unity of service and provision. In this case, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, we don't have that because we are changing the councils. So I can understand the rationale that we might want to wait a couple of years and postpone, not cancel, the mayoral elections. And because the mayor hasn't been elected yet, I see that as less of a problem than having elected representatives going on for years and years and years, longer than initially anticipated. Plenty of councils only have one election every 4 years. I, for one, would prefer to get this thing right. We'll get millions of pounds, at least £44 million a year has been announced already for the devolved budget of the mayor. And, okay, so we've got some parties have already announced candidates for the mayor. I think Reform have got some extra time now to choose another one, given what he said about the Foreign Secretary. That was absolutely disgraceful. Go back home to the Caribbean. I think they should be choosing a new candidate on that one. And I think there may be some words tonight about respect for democracy. Fine. I will take it as read that you're quite happy to lose your seats. You know, with democracy, that's the price you pay if the public are not happy with you. But I just think we should be constructive on this, and I'm not sure I can support political point scoring. We've had this time and again in the council. It makes us look like a really childish council that isn't doing the things it should be doing to serve our residents. Thank you.
Councillor Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got some sympathy for Councillor Lee's words earlier. I think Councillor Minus-Bound's words in presenting this motion gave a far more reasonable picture of this motion than some of the text as it was laid out, particularly around the suggested one-year compromise, which I think is, sounds all right to me. Given the late amendments to this motion that I'm really pleased that have been accepted, I will support it because borough and county elections absolutely have to go ahead. That is vital that we put our weight behind that on behalf of our residents who deserve their democratic vote in May. But I also wish that these two things weren't tied together. My notes of caution around the initial wording, I suppose, I don't want to belabour what Councillor Lee has said, but moving from some commentators have raised some concerns in one part to in the very next point alluding to it as a fact is really not great. And the timetable for these changes as originally laid out was always lightning speed. It was always breakneck. It feels to me like this is quite a predictable correction of that, to be honest, rather than anything else. It doesn't mean that the government shouldn't stick to the plan as they laid out, but that's where we are. Also, when we talk about cancelling this or postponing it not being a neutral thing, well, neither's going ahead with it. No act is neutral. If it's politically convenient for one group to have the thing postponed, it's by the flip side of that politically convenient for others to have it go ahead. That's just the nature of it, and not acknowledging that feels a little bit disingenuous. Not to belabour Councillor James's points about Hampshire County Council's own postponement this May, but they were one of 9 councils that did that, all of whom except 1 or 2, I think, were Conservative councils, and I think it was a good thing for them that they did, because all of the massive swathes of the Conservative-led authorities that did go to election got wiped out, as we know, out of the administration. So I agree with the motion where it states that governance should be shaped by local voices. Councillor Harvey talked about strategic powers and funding. We don't know what those are yet. We don't know what those powers will be or how much cash we'll get or anything like that. There are groups, campaign groups, all over the place. Groups, one of them is called We're Right Here. I was on their website today, that have huge concerns about the speed of the legislation going through that is doing all of this. That the powers devolved don't go far enough, that the promised level of control to be devolved to councils isn't what was promised, and going ahead at speed isn't going to make that easier to campaign for. I think that is an important note of caution. And so I will support this motion because the residents need to have their say in May, the borough and county residents. But I think that we should be, A, very, very careful about what motives we assign when we talk about things like this, and B, just careful what we wish for a little bit in terms of the powers that will or will not be devolved.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to try and explain, I think, really, what's been going on, because I think we're confusing a few things here, and the reality is, I know it's always said these things are not linked. Unfortunately, they are, and they've been linked by the government. So the government published its devolution paper in December last, and in that devolution paper they kept to their manifesto commitment where they were very clear of the introduction of mayors. What they were not clear on, because they did not state it in the manifesto, was their desire to have local government reorganisation. But at that moment, they combined the two together. And the process has been umbilically linked throughout because of that. That's the reality of it. Now we're grappling with that, we're trying to get to grips with that, and we're all almost saying exactly the same thing. And that's the point about people before politics. It's about trying to get the outcome that will work to deliver the outcomes and the solutions that residents are looking for. So just for example, and Stacey's quite right, Councillor Hart is quite right, the combined authority will come into existence now before the mayor does. It will have money to spend before the mayor does. Any decision making. The decision making will be made by existing councillors. Therefore, those existing councillors, it is critical, have a proper mandate. That's why the county council sitting round that table at the combined authority cannot postpone their elections. They have no right to postpone their elections if they are serious about democracy, because not only will they have postponed it for 1 year, contextually it's 2 years if they do it again. They're not going to do that according to what they've said. Therefore, what right would they have to sit round the table of the combined authority making decisions on behalf of residents without that refound mandate? And the same applies for us. If we don't have the mandate to go into negotiation with the county, the two cities and the island, to make our case for our residents that actually we should be sat round the table too, and it should be by consensus, as the old local economic partnerships used to be, then we do our residents a disservice, because their voice needs to be heard and it needs to be endorsed. So in a sense, all of this is wrapped up, not necessarily by choice, it's by practice of trying to implement all of this. It ain't easy. And as governments have found out, when you're into statutory orders, pieces of legislation and secondary legislation, it is not easy to thread the needle of something as complicated as devolution and local government reorganisation at the same time. Which is why, and this is probably the most important point about the politics, local government, represented through our organisations, together with central government, need to work really, really hard to get this right, because that is the prize here. Devolution is a prize to have, but it's got to get right. Local government reorganisation can be a prize. It also has huge risk associated with it, but we've got an awful lot of work to do. So the people that sit around that table really need a properly elected mandate to do so.
Councillor West.
Thank you. I think Councillor Hart made a really important point, echoing my point about the fact that these two areas are conflated in a way in this motion that's are unhelpful. I think Councillor Harvey reinforced that point without accepting or admitting that point, in that he said his hands were tied in conflating these issues. They kind of weren't. He chose to make the amendment he did to this motion and conflate the issues because he knows that it makes it particularly difficult for our group. That's a political choice because it's attached a motion that we absolutely support, an amendment that calls for this council to have elections in May, that calls for those elections to go ahead. That's obviously a point we agree with. It's something that we would always have supported and continue to support. But it attaches it to a political motion by the Conservative Party that is calling into question some things about the government that just are complete fabrications of their imagination. I'm sure that anyone who follows politics in a way that is as nerdly as I do knows that the entire MHCLG department got replaced with a brand new Secretary of State, brand new ministers who came in and saw the work that had been done for the last couple of years, last year and a half, and have taken the decision to reschedule the way that these are going out in a more clear-eyed way. I'm sure if anyone has ever picked up someone else's work from them and looked at it and gone, we're going to need more time to get this done, this I can do in that time period, I'm sure you can understand why that decision might have been taken. In fact, people in this room talked about it being too rushed before, looking at the Conservative Party, I remember the comments about this, you do it too much, too quickly, a lot of comments from you before on that. And now that they are pacing it in a way that I think is important, it's ground up, it's making sure that unitary authorities are in place before the mayor, so it's not top down. I think that's, these things are really important, and it's a shame that we've made it's been turned into such a political argument in this motion. I really, really want those local elections to go ahead. I know that myself and Abdul are willing to co-sign any letter that goes to the Secretary of State about local elections specifically, because we completely agree with the point that elections need to go ahead and we need that electoral mandate here in Basingstoke, and we've got a council that has the resources to be able to do both. We don't need to stop one to do the other.
Thanks very much. Councillor Ganesh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to reiterate the point I said earlier, so this is political and this is democracy. So let me start with something that always strikes me whenever I drive past Constitution Hill in Runnymede, especially when I'm picking up our family or friends from Heathrow. I always think about what that place represents. So the birthplace of our constitutional government. So Runnymede is a powerful symbol of everything we stand for: freedom, justice and democratic accountability. It's a place that reminds us all of our proud history and our role in spreading the principles of democracy. Just take a moment to think about this. The current Labour government came to power with just 32% of the electorate. That leaves a very important question. Okay, 34, let me correct myself. Okay, 34% electorate. That leaves very important question in the air. What did the government promise or even release last December, and what are they telling right now? It's completely opposite. So, and we are watching institutions that have been in place for 800 years, institutions that have long defined our democracy of our life being challenged. We are seeing the principles of trial by juries are under threat. Elections are being postponed and decisions being made that risk tarnishing our reputation as a stable, mature democracy in the world stage. So I reiterate the point again. As councillors of Basingstoke and Dean, we have a duty to speak up. We must advocate for transparency, integrity and accountability. If this means writing to Secretary of State or Prime Minister to reiterate the point that as councillors in here, we would like to see our residents exercising their democratic rights. So by standing strong on these values, we stand to rebuild the trust that has been damaged, not just in Basingstoke and Dean, but all around the Hampshire County. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm getting confused. Everybody's talking about political arguments. What we vote on is on the amendment paper, Council resolves 2. That is what we vote on. We don't vote on what Council notes. That's subject to debate if you want to. But we focus, please, on Council resolves. If you want to speak to anything, speak to that part of the paper. Otherwise, we're wasting our time here. I like what's being proposed for Council resolves tonight. I'm going to support it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Lee, when you finish with your phone.
Am I the last one? So, no. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to be clear from the outset, though, that I am a big supporter of the democratic elections, and I support the clarity for residents. Remember, I'm standing down next year. I want elections. Okay? But I do not support motions that conflate separate issues or that use procedural uncertainty to make a political point that doesn't stand up to scrutiny. This motion does exactly that. It merges 2 very different questions into one narrative. First, whether local council elections, including our own, should go ahead as scheduled. And second, whether the first ever mayoral election for a role that does not yet exist should take place in 2026 or 2028. These are not the same issue, and treating them as such is misleading. I want to deal with the mayoral point directly. The delay to a mayoral election does not change this council's powers, responsibilities or legal position today. I've said it. It doesn't prevent us setting budgets. It doesn't stop us doing any strategic planning. It does not delay local investment decisions, and it does not remove any existing democratic accountability. In practical terms, nothing about how this council operates tomorrow changes because a mayor is elected in 2026 or in 2028. That does not mean, though, that the timing is irrelevant. It does mean that the language in this motion dramatically overstates the immediate impact. What the motion then does is suggest implicitly and at times explicitly that this delay represents some kind of democratic denial or political interference. That is where it crosses from scrutiny into political signalling. Now, we know that mayoral elections linked to devolution have been delayed before. We know that local governments of different colours have adjusted election timetables during reorganisation. And we know that local government reorganisation is complex, disruptive, and is still unresolved in this area. Yet instead of acknowledging that complexity, the motion frames the issue as if residents are being deprived of an existing right, rather than being asked to wait longer for a new governance structure that has not yet come into being. More concerning still is the way that the motion drags local elections into the discussion. There is no proposal before this council to cancel Basingstoke and Dean's elections. None. Asking the Secretary of State to confirm that the elections are being cancelled may feel reassuring, but it also risks creating uncertainty. Now, Chair, Mr. Mayor, sorry, I just want to make sure that scrutiny is strongest when it is precise. Democracy is best defended when we avoid exaggeration, and residents are best served when we separate what feels politically uncomfortable from what actually changes within their local government. For these reasons, I'm going to be abstaining on the motion. So, thank you very much.
Councillor Ibrahim, you don't... Councillor Carr, you've waited a long... Councillor Carr, you've waited a hell of a long time.
Mr. Mayor, this Labour government now regards democracy as an optional extra, something that can be delayed if they fear a potential outcome. Last year, the government effectively forced our county council to delay its elections. We didn't like it, but we were given a solemn undertaking that it was a necessary precondition for devolution. So what happened earlier this month when the government broke its word and announced unilaterally that we would not have a mayoral election until 2028 represents a profound betrayal of our residents. None of the government's excuses hold water. When you think about it, there is absolutely nothing in the local government reorganisation process that precludes a mayoral election. Indeed, much of the statutory order is already written. The only explanation for this breach of faith is that Labour looked at the polls and didn't like what they saw. They recoiled in fear. Now, I'm confident that Donna Jones, our Conservative candidate, would have won in 2026. Members may laugh, but Conservatives do not run from the fight. And now we have the spectacle of Labour council leaders going round Westminster begging for a delay to their 2026 elections. What is that but fear and panic? They say it's to enable local government. They say it's to enable local government reorganisation, but I'm afraid the public know the truth. Only this afternoon, the government offered to cancel any local election where the incumbent administrations fear the fight. Is it really a surprise that a government that tramples over the ancient liberty of trial by jury would be so cavalier with our hard-won democratic freedoms? But, Mr. Mayor, this is not just democracy denied, this is opportunity denied. Cancelling this election will have severe consequences for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. Instead of a mayor, what we'll get in 2026 is diet devolution light. I'm afraid Councillor Lee is not correct. If you look at the MHCLG devolution framework explainers, mayors do have more powers. Those are powers that we will not now be able to exercise for 2 years.
Sorry, you've been on the council long enough to know how to behave. That goes for you as well, Councillor McCormack.
Without a mayor, the new authority will lack legitimacy and will lack a clear mandate. And yet, almost immediately, that authority will be asked to put together a spatial development plan to distribute housing and growth. Yet in Hampshire, the districts and boroughs that write our local plans are entirely outside of that decision-making, but will be subject to that spatial plan. Mr. Mayor, that is plan-making without representation, and it is unacceptable. Mr. Mayor, the financial implications of Labour's decision are also breathtaking. As Councillor Millers-Bound has outlined, Labour's decision to delay a full mayoral strategic authority will cost our residents tens of millions of pounds, money that could have been invested in our local infrastructure. Just think what that mayor could have done. Mr. Mayor, a government that fears the voting public has decided to abandon the south and east of England,
Got 1 minute
to
left.
dump Hampshire and the Isle of Wight into the devolution slow lane, while driving powers and funding to the north and the Midlands. Delaying Hampshire's mayoral election is not just anti-democratic, it's a stark unfairness that will hold back economic growth in our area. The government must reconsider, must bring back the 26 mayoral election and guarantee that every local election scheduled for 2026 happens. This business of asking for views by 15th of January is unacceptable. We should not forget that democracy was hard won. We've not yet reached the centenary of all women being given the right to vote. Nor should we forget that most people on this planet live under autocracies and sham democracies. I urge this council not to be so cavalier as the Labour government wish to be with democracy. I urge this council to back democracy, back devolution, and back this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Moynihan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I want to start with a very brief statement, which I didn't think I'd ever say, which I stand solidly beside Councillor Harvey. It is this government who have conflated these two issues, and to pick up something that Councillor Lee and our other Labour colleagues seem to be forgetting, that somehow that this isn't relevant. Today's news is that Councillor Harvey, as the leader of our council, is asked for his views and feedback about, and I would call it an invitation to delay elections. It is relevant, it's happened today, and the deadline is the 15th of January, and we do not have a full council meeting between now and then. There was also a point being made about impacting decisions. It doesn't change what we do. Do you know what? I've never heard so much nonsense in my whole life as a councillor. Where investment goes in this county, whether, I don't know, let's pick an example, that Junction 5, Junction 6, Junction 7, Junction 8 or Junction 9 of the M3 has investment, which is a decision that the mayor could make, would have a massive impact on decisions we make in this council, where we put our investment and what our partners do or do not do. It is an opportunity lost. There is a sad reality that is political. But there is a reality that sometimes this chamber will look at things through the wrong lens. The difficulty in politics in this country is often, again as Councillor Harvey said, between local government and central government. It is a relationship with quite a lot of friction, and it is often difficult. Labour councillors, we know your pain. There is also something about the decision here that's happening. As I said previously, postponing devolution versus the issues around the resources, the time, and the concentration required about LGR does not stand any sort of logical test. The government has focused to delay one without delaying on the others. Devolution, as I said earlier, is about opportunity. It brings power closer to residents, it unlocks funding, and gives our region a stronger voice. And we are ready. Do Conservatives say that? No, they don't. Everybody says it. Conservative Hampshire says it. Lib Dem Portsmouth says it. Labour Southampton says it. And Independent Isle of Wight says it. All of them say those things. Local government reorganisation is something that I know has created a huge amount of questions by everybody in this chamber. And if anything needs more time, it is this. Yet the government has chosen to do the opposite. If ministers insist on delay, again, I think there is something about, and I've spent a lot of today doing this, looking at the logistics. How does it add up? Having elections for the mayor on May 2028 does not work. It is as simple as that. May 27 would. That's why it tells me this is a knee-jerk political decision, not one based on logic and making the process work. So, Mr. Mayor, I have to say that cancelling elections, while I have some sympathy with our Labour colleagues, I will not take a lecture about democracy when other people are doing exactly what they have accused other people of doing. I urge members to support this motion.
Now we shall move to the vote on the motion as amended, and we'll have a recorded vote. Is that a request for a recorded vote anywhere? Yes, okay, let's go for it then. Tony Jones has not voted. Councillor Tony Jones will vote. That motion is carried. We're going to move on now to 15. Questions from the members and council on notice. Get 2 minutes a question. You take more than 2 minutes, I'll cut you off. So if you could say, as on the order paper, it's better. First one is from Councillor Melanie Linney.
As per the order papers, Chair. Thank you.
It doesn't save time if you spend 2 minutes tapping it.
So, come on then, let's respond.
So the answer to the question is we don't keep data on what private properties are empty or full. It's impossible to do so or take a lot of resources to do so. What I can say is the latest data we have is in terms of high street stores, in Basingstoke 1.7% are vacant. That compares to 2.2% across the North Hampshire and Berkshire region. In terms of Basingstoke itself, we have 3 empty properties but only 2 vacant properties. Very confusing. One is actually going through sale and the other one is being marketed as we speak.
Thank you.
Chair, this is 3 many or 1.7% more. So can the council consider the high street rental auction scheme for these 3 properties? Thank you.
Well, one's just been sold already on the open market, so that one we wouldn't be putting into the scheme. We haven't got a scheme adopted. The motion was moved, but we haven't adopted the scheme yet. But one, we are always open to offers. It's on the market, so if people want to buy a property from us, they can. They're available. They're on the website. If you're interested, get in contact with the team.
Thank you. Councillor Gary Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As per the order paper.
Councillor Harvey.
Well done, Gary.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you. Peace is breaking out. Aaron's backing a Labour motion and backing a Labour government operator. It's like, wow, come on. Thank you, Gary, for raising the issue. I've expressed residents' concerns directly to the leader of the County Council. I've called it out publicly a few weeks ago. Our officers have escalated our concerns to the head of environmental services at the county, and they've replied confirming that the decision was made by the County Cabinet as a part of their budget savings. They do not intend to change their stance. It's disappointing that the Labour County Councillor for Southam did not oppose the County Council budget, which was full of the same cuts to the services. She chose to abstain. So if the county now hold their decision, if the county continue with this, then we know in terms of any increase in fly tipping, who we can blame. When we took over the administration in May 2023, this council had recorded 3,042 incidents of fly tipping and 276 tonnes of fly tipping. Because of the investment that we've made in frontline services and the hard work of officers and our teams, that figure has come down by nearly 50%. And we've moved more than half of the tonnage to 113 tonnes. We have also increased prosecutions. This county decision disenfranchises many people who are not online or do not have someone able to help them get online to make a booking. I spoke to a pensioner just last week on this issue who contacted me saying that they didn't use a computer and they didn't use a smartphone, and they felt very strongly that they had been discriminated against. Now, I'm not sure how this decision of the county got past their equalities impact assessment. The idea that people can't use a computer but can go to the library to use a computer if they're not online is pretty insulting, really, especially when our libraries are also being subject to the same cuts. From our residents' reaction, I think it's pretty clear. We know that they feel that the withdrawal of the ability to book by telephone is fundamentally wrong. And as soon as I get the response from the leader of the county council, I will be happy to share it with colleagues.
Do you have a supplementary?
Yeah,
Councillor Watt?
I would thank the leader of the council for that response. I also have had representation from pensioners. I've actually had to go and book slots for them, and these people just haven't got email, and it's really disenfranchised. So please, leader of the council, keep the pressure up on the county to get this reversed or to scrap the booking system altogether. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. I will do so, and I will make sure that the county council knows the strength of feeling that is out there. I think there's 2 points to make. Firstly, I don't want this, and I don't think this should hopefully be any trend the county council sets. If this is the implementation of their digital first strategy, whereby residents cannot contact the county to offer to get services delivered, it's a pretty poor show. I think the way we recently adopted our own customer strategy, where we made it very, very clear that we wanted somebody on the end of the telephone to hear the inquiry and take the question from residents, is really important. So there's quite a contrast there, but where we're doing things and the way the county are doing things. I will keep the pressure up, and I will make sure members know that.
Question 3, Councillor Isaac.
Mr Mayor, the borough is required by the Labour government to find substantially more housing through the local plan to 2040. Many Down South is a public asset owned jointly by this council and the county, and at 325 hectares has the potential to contribute substantially to meeting the borough's increased housing target. The local planning authority is proposing that Many Down South delivers 2,750 homes to 2040, of which only 1,150 would be on the council land, the rest being on land adjoining owned by a third party. In terms of the ultimate development of council land, as Many Down South, the LPA is seeking to limit the land used for actual housing to 97 hectares, or just 30% of the overall land, which is low, very low by industry standards. Could the portfolio holder reassure me and residents across the borough facing threats of unexpected new housing developments in their areas that he will ensure through the Reg 18 process and beyond the full utilisation of Many Down South for housing?
Mr Konecki.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, John, for the question. There's a fine balancing act here, and I believe we've included as many houses as we possibly can in Many Down South, while still making it an attractive place to live and staying true to our vision for the area. Let me briefly explain how I've come to that conclusion, and apologies in advance for bombarding you all with some statistics. So the total area of Many Down South is around 340 hectares. Of that, about 110 hectares comprises the strategic gap. This is a big chunk of land, but it's something that the residents of Oakley have told us that it's important to them, and we've listened. That leaves 230 hectares. Of that, around 30 hectares is occupied by a scheduled monument. That gives us 200 hectares. I hope you're keeping up there, Mr. Mayor. Of that, about 80 hectares will be needed for the primary school, the secondary school, sports facilities, green space, woodland and buffer zones. We keep 20 hectares of gross developable area. Of that, around 25 hectares will be used for roads, paths and other utilities. That leaves around part of the regulation 18 in.
Yeah, thank you for your response near ridge lines. I think the LPA is wanting larger buffers around woodland. So we've gone from 8,600 houses in 2022 down to 7,500 following that, and now down to 6,000 in total. And the point I'm trying to make is that only a small area of Many Down South is actually being built on by the LPA, as you've conceded, but the LPA is still wanting a low density housing scheme on that land.
Is there a question coming?
Yes, there is. So my question is, are we really being ambitious enough with this scarce land resort? And are we really saying that we can only deliver 1,150 homes on our own council land in the period up to 2040, which is 14 years away?
Councillor Konecki, I'm still listening.
Thank you very much. And members of the council, certainly members of E&I, have had input into the local plan making process. We talk about in the policy section of nature recovery. We apply those rules to the private developers who want to build in our area, and we've got to take those rules ourselves. Chamber are wanting to propose not just for the private developers, but also for us as public sector developers. So it's about being fair, and it's about making sure.
County Council decided to take back the responsibility it had devolved to Basingstoke and Dean on highways. The impact was felt by our residents. We had a local contract for traffic orders, for parking solutions. County pulled those powers back to Winchester. That was a mistake. We called for a county review. Welcome Luke Murphy's round table on this issue because he's engaged on this, and I know he raised concerns on being a director. It should have been a senior officer. She was brave to come. She accepted the questions that were put, and it was also important that she took them back to county. But we should have had a senior person there. I also noted that there was only one county councillor who sat around that table. Which begs the question, I hope that the Labour County Councillor for Brookvale has been lobbying the county on all of these issues, because I know that she is your representative of Hampshire County Council and the Highways Authority. So I trust that you've asked her these questions, that you're pressing her to ask the Press County to undertake the safety review. Now perhaps she could tell us what she's done, who she's spoken to, and what action she's taken to get county to undertake to deal with these issues. But meanwhile, I will write to county, we will raise these issues, we will lobby county on this, but we need to remember, and this is really important that we make clear to our residents, we're not the Highways Authority. And we don't want to mislead people into thinking that we can step in for the county when we have no powers to do so. We can lobby, which we will write, which we will be clear, which we will back our residents.
Sum up.
But we need the Highways Authority to step up here.
And a supplementary, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, my colleague and friend. Just want to say, I mean, considering I'm the councillor for this ward, I've been in touch with the Hampshire County Council so many times, and the last interaction with them was very much around the similar issue. Winchester Road and off-roads, the speeds and the parking restriction, and they always come back with saying, we don't have resources, it's not a priority, there's no high risk, and lots of excuses that I never kind of buy into them, and very sad to see this happen. And yes, and I agree with you, I'm not leaving any stone unturned, whether that's a Labour county councillor, whether they're MP, whether they're coming here
We
to
need a
lecture
question.
you.
We need a question.
Because, yeah, because that is important. My question to you, would you bring me along with you to act together, because that needs to join forces to put pressure on county council together when it comes to lobbying to audit the roads, especially in my ward?
Thank you, Abdel. There's two things here that I think are really important. First of all, the resident that came this evening that represents the campaign group that is specifically referencing the tragedy that took place on Winchester Road is really important, and we need to respect and also hear directly what they have to say and what we can do to support them. The issues that you've set out are the same issues that so many colleagues round this chamber experience in their wards by the lack of action from the Highways Authority in the way we want them to. I mean, we recently had a zebra crossing put in Sherborne Road. We've been fighting for it for a long time. The county had sat on the £150,000 of developer money they'd taken from the Chapel Gate development. The Chapel Gate development has been up since 2015. Yet they've sat on that money for all those years, not delivering that zebra crossing. They put the zebra crossing in and didn't connect the bleacher beacons, and then had to put the two barriers up either side to stop people using the crossing because they put the road markings in.
Unfortunately, you only get a minute.
These are some of the issues we all deal with. What I'm saying is I respect the point, but you're not the only one. And so we need to represent the Chamber's views on this, I think, and work out how we do that together. And let's do that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Carr.
A feasibility report on the suitability of golf re-provision was presented to Resident Services Committee this week. It claimed that Downgrange was the most suitable location. But residents were initially denied the chance to read this report and prevented from scrutinising this administration's analysis of Downgrange against other suitable sites because the report was deemed confidential under the 1972 Act. Yet Conservative councillors who read this report were clear that just 4 of the 76 pages contained genuinely sensitive information that warranted exemption from publication. So I asked the leader of this council why the Downgrange feasibility report was initially hidden from public view when 90% of it was suitable for publication?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the question. Officers identified that there was an error and they corrected it. So Tuesday night I understand that the right papers were published for members and residents.
Supplementary.
I am deeply concerned that this administration is not being fully transparent with the public on a host of issues, not least Downgrange. It was disturbing to discover that the head of law and governance had not seen the Downgrange feasibility report until the Conservatives raised it the day before the committee. So I asked the leader, what is the internal governance process for the council determining whether information should be deemed confidential under the 1972 Act? Can he assure us that exemption is not simply a decision of the lead officer or author or cabinet member to determine? And to prevent further potential abuse of the 1972 Act, will he agree that all exemptions will face scrutiny by the head of law and governance moving forwards?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What a little mischievous question. The truth of the matter is it rests with the monitoring officer, it rests with the officers to decide that which is confidential and that which is not. It is thoroughly disingenuous to suggest that councillors are involved in those decisions. And that is not the case. And it's very naughty for you even to suggest so.
That concludes questions from members. We're now on to item 16. Does anybody have any questions to the Chair of Cabinet or committees on the minutes listed in the agenda? I'm going to suggest that's no. And that concludes the meeting.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, can we just thank Councillor Tuck? Because it's her birthday today, and she has put up with this meeting from top to bottom on the night of her birthday. Many happy returns, Kate.
Can I just say, well, Councillor Harvey, she's not the only one, but it's a season of goodwill, peace on earth and goodwill to men, so you're all invited into the parlour for a glass of wine and a mince pie.